Hello and welcome to Glorious Miniatures, and in today's video we're going to be doing a video which is not quite planned for today. This was in the works to do at some point, but I basically lost some footage for the video which was planned, and as a result this is the video that's coming out today. It's good to have a bit of backup footage apparently. So here we go. Today we'll be applying transfers to a convex shape, in this case a Space Marine shoulder pad. And without further ado, let's just get stuck into it. Okay, what we do. So, MicroSet, MicroSol. These are what we're going to be using today to attach this transfer to this miniature. We'll be using MicroSet first, followed by MicroSol. First things first, where we want the transfer to go, we want to put down some varnish, particularly gloss varnish. This is the stuff that I use, Vallejo gloss acrylic varnish. I have watered it down, sort of mixed it with some water and put on a nice smooth coat already. Right here, we're going to use this sweet Lemartes conversion I'm currently working on. Oh, hello. Yeah, so we've done his shoulder pad. We need to put a Death Company thing right there. So while that is on, unfortunately, I forgot to record that little bit, but it's just a nice smooth mix. Leave it to dry thoroughly and prepare yourself for the next part of the process. Lemartes, all right. Here's a Blood Angel. Death Company. You've got to try and find the right sized. Unfortunately, you can't see this because it's very, very bright. But we're going to use one of these white transfers here. So we chop out one of these using a... How pointy is this blade? It is definitely a blade. You want to chop it out very carefully. Probably slightly blurry, but that's okay. All right, here we've got a suitable receptacle for what we're just about to do. We're not sponsored by Tiptree, but I did have some really tasty jam. So we're going to put this transfer right into this center of here. And we are going to just put some water on it, just like that. Just enough to really get the transfer off the paper. And we're going to have to flip this over quickly, just like so. Just being quite careful with it and just leaving it to soak for a while longer. Okay, so while that is soaking in water, we're going to get some MicroSet. Okay, that is this one right here. We're going to get some of this on the dried varnish. It's like that. It's going to still look wet, unfortunately, because the gloss varnish, unfortunately, we're just going to have to deal with that. The gloss varnish does help move the transfer around, so that is why we have it. Got a nice smooth surface, obviously. Hopefully, our transfer is slowly getting ready. I'll have this in the background right here. Really out of focus as we focused on this. Unfortunately, I don't have 3 arms, or indeed 3 hands. Otherwise, this would be a lot easier, but I've had to clamp this into a things to get all my hands ready for this next bit. I've got a pair of tweezers. I want to keep it on the paper, and then we're going to slide it off onto the surface of this shoulder pad. We are just going to slide it off using the brush. Easy. There we go. It's done. Job done. Stop recording. While we're still using our brush, we're going to slowly use this to position it how we want. Now, I think the plan is we want this blood drop in the center of the shoulder pad, of the center of that particular gold sort of tab at the base of the shoulder pad in particular. If you're running out of liquid, add a bit more MicroSet to the brush, and you can continue to maneuver this around until it's sort of situated vaguely how you want it to look. It's entirely up to you exactly on the placement, but I like to sit it quite low down on the shoulder pad rather than up near that curve. Just take your time and you'll get there. I think we're onto something there. I think that is probably as good as we're going to get. Now, there is a little bit of excess liquid there, so get the brush. Absorb as much as you can from, like, off the surface of the shoulder pad. Then what we want to use is a Q-tip or a cotton bud or whatever you call these things that you prod into one's ear hole. Okay, and then what we want to do is we want to kind of roll it from the center, well, outwards really. So where possible, it's not always going to be the easiest thing. That should hopefully help get rid of any air bubbles and wick away any excess liquid. Now, if there are any air bubbles left, it's not a disaster. Do not fear. We've got the other liquid to use as well. Make sure this dries first, and then we shall return. It has dried, as you can see. There is a slight kind of right there, in fact. That little white bit there is a sort of wrinkle. So you've got a couple of wrinkles going on. Now, The way we're going to sort of attempt to defeat that is using MicroSol. So we do want to apply a bit of pressure to this. We can do multiple passes, but wait, I'd probably wait for each layer to dry. So get that on there. I'm going to wait a little bit. Doing this sort of thing when you've got like multiple miniatures to do, you can have a sort of production line. I think I tend to do it normally in batches of 5. I tried 10 before, but that was a bit of a nightmare. So I was doing sort of 5 at a time, I think is, for me at least, a good amount. This is just the 1 miniature, so we can take as long as we want, really. We're going to wait for this to dry, then we'll come back and do another coat and see if we can get that final wrinkle right there. It's kind of hard to see, in fact. White was probably not the best. I'm going to probably have to do another tutorial like this later on. But we'll come back once this is dried and do another coat. Here is our shoulder pad as it's looking right now. Got rid of most of the wrinkles. There's sort of one left on that side of the shoulder pad, which we're going to attempt to get away. We are using, as I said before, the MicroSol, the solvent part of the pair, I guess, the more aggressive one. We've still got our Q-tip to help if we're with the final sort of bit of, if things are being a bit stubborn, you want to gently use that to sort of massage things into shape. So, as before, get that. This will help just in case, just get the rest of the surface. We want it. I don't know what, I think perfectly circular ones are quite difficult on shoulder pads, but I have put multiple Imperial Fist ones on. So they are obviously possible. With these ones, if possible, I mean, potentially you can always do a little cut between there to sort of aid in any movement. On the circular ones, it just needs a bit of time and effort. It gets there in the end, though. Apply a tiny bit more pressure. Sort of massage that into shape, into position. We may have to use the Q-tip by gentle pressure. And then you get rid of the little bump. What a time to be alive. That's awesome. So we just wait for that. We wait for that to dry, and then we can go to the next stage. At this point, we've got all the edges smoothed down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go over it with Lahmian Technical Medium right here. I would be using some nice coats of matte varnish. I like a matte finish, so I'd cover the entire thing with matte varnish, but I'm not really at that stage yet. I just have to put the backpack on this miniature, so I needed to get this done and out of the way now rather than later. It'd be slightly more difficult in that situation. That's why I'm just going to be putting a coat of this on. That will knock down the glossiness of this and sort of return it to a nice sort of paintable surface. But that's basically all there is. You know, start off with the MicroSet, move on to the MicroSol, and then we now find ourselves at this stage. So on with the technical medium, and we'll hopefully sort of bring all the surface together into one sort of similar looking texture. Wait for it to dry, and then we should be right back. Okay, as you can see, it is now dried. It's still slightly glossy. I'm going to put one more coat on. Hasn't been like up there. It's kind of run down, so put another coat on, and then we're basically good to go. On with the Lahmian Technical Medium for a second and hopefully final coat. Now, as I said before, I will be doing a matte varnish after this, so I'm not too bothered if it's not like 100% matte or anything. I just want it to be, well, before it was far too like a sort of freshly polished car, that red. So make sure you get a good coverage, nice and even. It was slightly thinner up here, so I'm hoping to sort of make sure it... We may even have to do a third coat, but well, let's just see how it happens, how it dries. Hopefully it'll be nice and matte, and then we can finish off the rest of the miniature, which is going to be good. It's gone on remarkably well. Circular transfers have been a bit of an issue, especially on these sorts of shoulder pads. However, using Q-tips and sort of rolling from the center outwards towards the outside of the circle, has definitely helped get the majority of sort of air bubbles, etc. removed, and then going in once that's dried with the MicroSol to kind of melt away any excess. If you do find any air bubbles are underneath the surface of the transfer that you haven't managed to get rid of, you can always use a pin to sort of pierce that hole, and then you can use a bit of MicroSol to sort of flatten it out again. I suppose if one makes any errors, so if there's a tear in this white bit, I could go back with some white, or if I wanted to, I could go back in and put some battle damage in with some sort of, I don't know, a darker brown color with a highlight, etc., etc., that kind of sort of thing. However, that is not what we're doing. I'm pretty happy with that. As I said before, potentially you could do another coat if you really wanted to. I don't think at this point I need to, because it's looking like I want it to look. We will do a matte varnish later, and that will bring everything together at the same time. But that's pretty much it for putting on a transfer. No doubt I will have some more sort of tutorials like this, maybe even more transfer videos with more complicated ones, but that's basically it for using MicroSol and indeed MicroSet. Check them out, they are absolutely worth it. Definitely a step up from using just plain old water. Folks, thanks very much for hanging out with me today as we applied this transfer to this shoulder pad. I'm very happy with the result. I do have a couple of questions for you though. Firstly, are you subscribed? If you're not, maybe now is the time to look below the video and tickle that subscribe button. It's a huge help, and I do want to boost this channel and improve on it in the coming years. So with your help, we can do it. I know we can. Second question, almost as important. How did you find this video? Did you search around on the YouTubes and all that kind of stuff? Or did you find this video on a video that I made and I linked it in the top right hand corner and said, follow this link and this is how I applied the transfer, that sort of thing? If you did that, I would love to know what video you watched to get to this video, if that makes sense. It's a huge help for me, and I like to know if stuff I'm doing is working or if it's just pointless. You know what I mean? And that's all I got to say. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.